RGB in photogrammetry, you got thermal and LiDAR. How are they going to play a part over the next sort of 12 to 18 months in our market, do you think? Especially from an asset inspection perspective.
LiDAR is a funny one. Like, you're going to outlay a lot of money for a LiDAR system, and photogrammetry just keeps making leaps and bounds to where the effective point cloud output can be just as accurate as a LiDAR. So I see its use cases narrowing down to obviously vegetation, where it needs to get that canopy penetration, or very like fine detail, like power lines or overhead rail lines, anything like that. I think LiDAR will play its place. Thermal will be a big one. And I think that comes across not only from an inspection point of view, and we're talking like reservoirs, dams, and things like that, where you're getting those temperature changes, but in property, it's just as big, especially around identifying heat and cooling loss, because most in property, especially, and everything filters from fund down. So most funds now have the biggest importance placed on their ESG impact, so environment, social, and governance. It's what most are putting all their effort into. And ESG is not just sustainability, but, if we're talking modeling and you can prevent people having to return to site or go to site as often, they'll track that saving in terms of carbon. They'll track it for their social aspect in terms of not having someone drive on the road, because that can be just as dangerous as anything else. Then, the thermal modeling and that heat cooling loss will play just as big a part, because they'll be able to measure that and report direct back to shareholders. Because in Australia, we are probably the biggest owners of Australian assets anyway, because I can't remember what the figures are, but majority of it's owned by super funds, our super funds. So I think thermal will play a really big part in that ESG impact. The next big one, if anyone wants to help, is we need to get modeling done internally, just as good as we can do externally. So,
Brendan, you raising your hand right now?
Hey?
I think Brendan just raised his hand up.
I've got it tied down. We're on podcast, guys. We just got to...
He's not smiling. That's just a virtual face.
Yes, it's a virtual face. I don't think I can help you. It's not my can't do it.
Not your bag.
What sort of internals, Derek?
Just subtle.
Internal warehousing, internal sky rises.
Challenging.
Yeah.
It's a hard world, internals.
So for the people listening, why would internals be so much harder than doing external surfaces?
So modeling, we kind of, and it's not always the case, but the primary way we stitch together a model is the metadata or your GPS metadata. That's why a PPK or RTK systems are always better, because it'll give us cleaner models, outputs. Not to say that it has to be used, because a lot of the internals are done with visual type points. But one of the biggest tips, especially on anything without any detail. And if you think of a big logistics center or warehouse roof, it's corrugated, and you're trying to do a 1 mil per pixel capture, every photo looks exactly the same. So without GPS data, there's no modeling that, because it's just, everything is the same.
Yeah, constant. And then I guess when you're going internals and depending on what type of building you've got white walls, and white walls all look the same. And then you got to contend with potential mirrors and hallways and things like that. So it's a pretty complicated space when we go internals. But when you go warehouse, it's a little bit different. You got a lot of textures, but then you're also contending with plant room equipment and everything else. So yeah, it's
even just the empty space side of things, Brendan. I don't know, from when we've done halls before, entertainment halls, and trying to do an internal tour with those. And I'll tell you now, 360 cameras don't like really big empty rooms. So you have to put all these nice, ugly QR code tags around the room. It completely ruins what you're trying to do to begin with. But it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Just think in a few years how different this whole structure could be. If it's moving that fast already, we've gone from a shipping container to a shoebox.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
The tech world changes every day. I mean, we all see it in all of our respective facets of the industry. There is something new coming out every few days. Not necessarily just in the drone world, but in camera world, in computer world, whatever. It's constant at the moment. We live in a pretty wild time. I have a constant joke with my grandmother. She's 96, and I think about the things she's seen in her lifetime. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Definitely.
It's constant evolving.
Yeah.